Okay, so let's continue with Chapter 5, the impact of colonialization on gender and social structures. In our world today, we can't talk about human sexuality without talking about colonialism. Colonialism is defined as control by one power over dependent area or people. It occurs when one nation subjugates another, conquering its population and exploiting it, often while forcing its own language and cultural values upon the people there. Forced assimilation of indigenous people happens through terrorism. Terrorism causes trauma. Trauma happens by fragmentation of the spiritual, emotional, and physical parts of a person in order to remove their sense of community and interconnection with others. The boarding school system in the United States was first developed to assimilate and indoctrinate Native American children into Christian, white supremacist, and patriarchal systems, and to rid them of their culture. While colonialism effects are still present today, there also exists another kind of subjugation. Let's look at sexual orientation around those subjugated to gender predisposition. In the last chapter, we discussed intersex. An astonishing case involving the tragic story of David Reimer, who in 1965 and was just an infant and just a few months old when he was taken to be circumcised, and his penis was irreversibly damaged. It was actually burnt off by this equipment that malfunctioned. At the prompting of a doctor at that time, Dr. Money, or Moni, not sure how he pronounced his name, his mother agreed to let let him undergo reconstructive surgery of his genitals to become female. Now, David didn't have anything to do with this. He was too young to make that decision. And with the thinking of the doctor and the times, his mother agreed. But in an interview that you'll see, she can barely speak about it. Even the interview was taken some time ago because she felt so guilty about what happened. In any case, Dr. Moni, he theorized that all infants under the age of 2 were neutral in gender, and that by performing the surgery, David would become female. So after a lifetime of serious struggles and attempting to adapt to being female, David forgave his mother, but ended up committing suicide in 2004 after suffering lifelong depression as a result of the trauma he endured. Children born intersex have also undergone involuntary sexual reassignment with devastating consequences. The impact of colonialism is still with us today. Being BIPOC, which is Black, biracial, indigenous, or a person of color, are still subject to daily microaggressions. And the trauma of this history is still felt. However, there are efforts being made to practice decolonization and intergenerational healing. The healing, as recently as 2022, the U.S. Department of Interior has begun to outline next steps in the Federal Indian Boarding School Initiative. The purpose of this initiative is to address the intergenerational trauma created by historical federal Indian boarding school policies. Many communities of people of color are beginning to reclaim their identities, communities, and practices. This includes their sexual practices. In pre-colonial days, these kinds of practices were not thought to be weird. There were non-binary structures of sexuality within tribes and communities that were not labeled as bad or good, nor were they judged. And it's only been since colonialism, that the subjugation of these practices has been enforced. And so even though it's been many years, the inherent discrimination against people of color and intersectionality have not stopped. And great And so there are many social programs that, I don't want to call them social programs, but social movements that are happening to change these, and people are reclaiming their identities. So when we look at human sexuality in this context, there is most of the population have lived under this shadow and still have not been able to practice the freedom to be themselves.